Hey everyone, it is Tom Karadza, and on this episode of the podcast, we have a great story for you. This is a love story between Cherry Chan and Erwin Szeto. They are both real estate investors. Cherry is an accountant, if you don't know that. They are married to each other, and they're just like this awesome power team of real estate superness. Superness? Can't believe I just said that. Anyway, superness. And on this episode of the podcast, they share their story. They share their story about real estate. We talk about some accounting stuff naturally. Erwin shares about some of the stuff that he has coming up this fall, some big news around a speaker that he's bringing in, Grant Cardone. If you don't know Grant Cardone, he is one of the big personalities in real estate in the U.S. Erwin is bringing him up here to Canada. If you don't know Erwin has been part of the Rockstar team since, I think he says on the podcast, since 2010. He is a great guy, also runs his own podcast. Someone told me earlier, a few weeks ago, that I call everyone who comes on the podcast a good guy. So I'll say Erwin is a good guy. He's worth listening to. I really like sharing their story around their family, how Erwin and Cherry both manage some of their family time and their kids. So we cover a lot of bases on this podcast. So hopefully you enjoy it. And we cover a lot of bases on something that we just put together for you. It's a new report that we are just releasing called Ontario's Population Explosion, The Untold Story. How Ontario's population trends are creating amazing opportunities for savvy real estate investors like you. So if you want to get your hands on some of the data that we are constantly referencing about population growth, you can go to rockstarinnercircle.com/reports. And you can get this brand new report from us. In there, we've collected some of the Stats Canada data that we reference, some of the data from the government of Ontario that we reference, some other news articles that we reference. We put a bunch of the charts in here, and we've also taken some of the Go Train stuff that we have shared over the last year specifically on the Go Train expansion and some of their own projections, because that's a little bit of a treasure map for real estate investors. When you marry the population growth in this area to the Go Train expansion, it's almost like a roadmap or a treasure map on where to be buying properties. So that's all covered in this report. You can go to rockstarinnercircle.com/reports to get that. And on that page, we also have 3 other reports for you. We have the Destruction of the Middle Class report, if you haven't got that one yet. We have a report called Does Paying for Your Kids' Education Really Make Sense? And I just really want to be clear about something. We are not anti-education. We are big believers in education. Nick and I are still educating ourselves and paying for education constantly. We're just measuring the cost of a degree against the cost of an income property if both purchased roughly at the same time. And that was just a thought experiment we put into this. So it might be worth checking out. And we have a blueprint. We call it a roadmap to $235,000 of yearly income by investing in local real estate. That is the blueprint of a real estate investor that we've worked with over the years and how he's created that much income for himself with properties. So you can get all those reports at rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Let's get on with the podcast.
Are you ready to live life on your terms? Is it time to take charge? Real estate, business building, the economy, health and nutrition, and more. It's the Your Life, Your Term show with Tom and Nick Karadza. Are you ready? Let's go.
Okay. All right, guys, we are here with you guys are pretty much like I feel like this is a famous couple, no?
No, we're not.
Okay,
famous.
I think you are.
Nobody knows who we are.
Erwin Szeto and Cherry Chan.
Yeah.
And it's a great dynamic duo because I've heard through the grapevine that Erwin buys properties and doesn't tell his wife, but his wife's an accountant. So I don't know, that probably shocks you, but then you can do like accounting magic to just fit these properties into your portfolio and make them all work. So you guys are a magical combo that way.
Yeah, I don't think, what did I call you in the other podcast? Can I say that?
You can say whatever you want.
Oh, I call him an asshole.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't
Oh, my
expect
podcast,
that.
she calls me an
Yeah.
asshole.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I call him an asshole.
Why do you call him an asshole?
I think it's one of these things that he is doing it for the first time. And he also did not see the property himself. He put an offer into the property that he's never seen. And we've never seen it. Just to give you the context, the previous one that he intended to put an offer in, and I asked him just a few basic questions, right? Like, hey, did you do a comm? And then the comp came back and showing like maybe 450, and we're buying it.
When
at
you say
400.
comp, do you mean like a comp, like a comparable?
Like a comparable
Okay, got
on
it.
the property.
Okay, got it.
You would have thought that Mr. Hamilton would do some comparative himself, right? Like do comps himself, and obviously he didn't do it. He got,
I like how it's
my
obvious.
assistant did it.
and so then he went back to his office and say, hey, like Megan, can you do it? Megan, his assistant, did it, and then came back and say, hey, like the comp are showing like 400 or something, but then one of his team members said that is worth 500. And I'm like, why is it worth 500? Because he came in to tell me, hey, like this deal is really 500 and we're buying it at 350. But the comp is showing at 400. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, it was too skinny.
Yeah. And then I'm like, what's going on? Why is your agent saying 500? Did you not look at it yourself? He obviously did not look at it himself. So when he told me, he came back and found the second deal, he's like, yeah, I'm putting an offer in. I'm like, what the hell? Like, did you look at comps? And this time he's a bit more prepared.
Wow, Cherry, I didn't expect you to just go all in on this comment. Yeah, keep going. This is great. Okay. Yeah, what the hell are you doing, Erwin? Yeah, keep going, Cherry. Sorry.
Like, it's one of the best deal that we've landed on, but it's just that because of the way that he approached the potential first one, we didn't end up buying the first one, that it triggered me calling him an asshole. But
that's when you know you're getting too comfortable with real estate, when Erwin is like, yeah, this is a good deal and you're going to get it for 350. You think it's worth 500 and you're really not putting that much more effort into it other than that. And you have to have your wife, Cherry, call you out and say, hey, is it really worth the 500,000? Well, so what did you buy? Like, what is this one that you bought?
So the one we actually made an offer on. So in my really poor negotiation communication with my wife, hence I earned the term asshole. I told her, great deal. Like, don't worry. She's like, oh, you haven't seen it, right? Like, no, I haven't seen it. So get a conditional inspection.
Is there a home inspection? No.
No. At first there was, but then the seller struck it out, and then like, okay. So I still hadn't seen it. Lost our inspection condition.
Yeah, no inspection.
Where is this property?
200 meters from McMaster University.
Okay, so it was a student rental?
No, it was owner occupied at the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. You're buying it to convert it into a student rental.
Yeah, that's our plan.
Okay, this is the one we were just talking about before we went live on this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
So you bought this thing, good deal, and you're going to turn it into a student rental. You didn't do a home inspection?
We did after we had the deal accepted.
Okay.
Just because I know my insurance company's going to need it. They're going to want it. And also I wanted a checklist for, and also it was Rob Chain, who also does measurements for, I also wanted him to look at it in case I could do a second suite. I didn't think I could going in, but still I wanted, and I wanted his eyes on that property. But we did inspect about just a few days after we had a firm offer on the property.
Did you like what you found? Everything came back okay?
It was acceptable. Everything was
Okay.
acceptable.
And can you turn it into a second suite out there?
No, I don't have the parking for it. I knew that going in though.
Okay, but the area was zoned for it. You just didn't have the parking for it.
Likely yes,
Yeah.
but I knew I knew I wouldn't get it without the parking, and I didn't have the parking.
Okay. Why are you buying properties so casually? You're just that comfortable with like, because to me, I can see myself, the reason I can relate, Cherry, because I can see myself doing the same thing. Yeah, because people ask us all the time, hey, Tom, Nick, where do we buy properties? And at this point, it feels like I could close my eyes and it just tell me I'm in Ontario. I could probably figure out what city I'm in. I touch a property and I can figure out with, how many bedrooms does it have, what income it's going to generate, and if the price point is right, it just makes sense. Just buy the thing.
Oh, no,
but that
I
is
get
being
it.
very casual. I'm
Yeah.
not recommending anybody buy properties with that particular strategy, but I can see how Erwin and you would get to that point when you understand a market really intimately.
Right.
Well, we understand it really well. Like, we understand the location. Well, actually, at the time when he told me about the deal, he never mentioned the location. He just said it's in Hamilton. And I'm like, great. Where about in Hamilton? Never told me until probably 10 days before, or maybe after closing or something. So, like, all my, when I call him names, it's all justified. Just kidding.
Yeah, the decision was easy in my head. I just need to explain what was in my head to Cherry.
Got it. So he explains it. You go ahead with this thing. You've closed on this property now?
Yeah. It's going through renovations, some unexpected stuff, but
Who handles that between you two? Because Cherry, you're running your accounting practice. And Erwin, so I'm imagining, Erwin, this is something you run and then you just keep Cherry up to date?
we've kind of divided our portfolio in Concord that way.
Okay.
So I'm dealing with the more active stuff right now. So I'm the one that's checking on it once in a while, dealing with contractors, getting insurance, Cherry deals with the lending on that sort of stuff because I basically have an in-house CFO, which is very handy. Highly recommend it to anybody.
I deal with all the St. Catharines one because when I first started, I handle all the St. Catharines leads. I handle all the St. Catharines team, and so I still handle that part. And he, being Mr. Hamilton himself, so he handles everything that's in Hamilton.
Got it.
Right.
And then from bookkeeping point of view, I'm curious because my bookkeeping strategy has always been I come home with receipts from different properties. And then I still, to this day, we don't quite do it like this, but for many years, we just had manila envelopes written with the property address on it. And if I came home with a receipt from that particular property, I would stick it in that manila envelope. And then really, sometimes it would just live there almost until the end of the year. Then I would take all the receipts out. I would put them into my own spreadsheet. Then I would transfer that information over to the T770.
T776.
What is it again?
Yes, T776.
T776,
Yeah.
which is the income tax form basically to record all the income and expenses on
The personal return.
for personal returns on rental properties. So I take it all off my spreadsheet and then pass it over to the accountant that we use. He would put it in there and I was kind of done with it.
Yeah.
That little strategy works really, really well.
So
What do you guys do now? For many years? We do things a little differently now because, we have businesses and we have more bookkeeping programs and that kind of stuff. But what do you guys do for receipts and bookkeeping?
I would say we're pretty similar.
Okay.
But in terms of the way you structure things, but our envelope is not a physical copy of the envelope. We use apps. So we take a picture.
Okay,
of it
and you can
tag.
use apps because every time I start using apps for this kind of stuff, I lose my stuff in the digital world. Like I need to print it out and hand it to a place. That you guys don't need to do that. You can actually survive with using apps to collect all your receipts.
I use apps. I think Erwin is working on it. He's currently saving everything in his envelope and then handing it to my team.
Got it. Okay. I still love that strategy.
Yeah.
So what apps what do you recommend?
I can't say I necessarily recommend one thing over the other, but
what do you like?
So right now I'm using an app called HubDoc.
What is it?
a-
HopDog?
Hub. It's just
Oh,
the
HubDoc.
HubDoc.
HubDog.
Document.
HubDoc.
HubDoc. Yeah.
Got it.
So
HUBDOC.
Yeah, HubDoc. Okay.
And what it allows me to do is essentially take a picture of the receipt, and if you set up properly in the back end, it can be synced directly to your QuickBook Online account, and it publish it for you.
That scares the shit out of me.
You can
No,
swear on
really,
this podcast.
that just really scares me, man. But I got it. Okay.
But then also,
But let's say I have multiple businesses, then you send the receipt to the wrong business. Because what are you sending it to? Like an email address that's specifically set up?
no, it's an app.
So the app, once you set up the app, it's tied directly to a QuickBooks Online application, which is for an existing business.
Yes.
So you choose the wrong business,
Yes.
it's going to the wrong place.
Yes, it can be
Yeah,
the same
okay.
way
Okay.
as you do your envelope system, right?
Yeah, no.
But it's just a electronic version of your
got it.
envelope system.
Okay, but in that app, it's actually taking the receipt and do you give the general ledger account? Like, how do you classify it?
So depending on how you sort it through, you can tag it by property. So I can tag it by ABC property, and then when we set it up, certain part can be automated, certain part cannot be automated. So the part that we can classify it by property, saying ABC, this tag belongs to ABC property, we can book it directly in QuickBook Online. Going into that
that
ABC
actually
property.
sounds better than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but then it is not as simple, and it's a setup. It's a process, and it's a process that we've been working on for a couple of years now.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And that's what you're recommending some of the investors you work with set up?
Not necessarily HubDoc, because HubDoc is being purchased by some Australian company, and so there are other apps that are available out there. And QuickBook Online, who's also the head of product, he's also a Rockstar member, Scott Zandenberg. He is the head of QuickBook Online, and he's
What do you mean he's the head of QuickBooks Online?
I think he's the head of product of QuickBook Online.
Really?
Well, at least the last time I checked, he
Okay.
was. Yeah. So then he said that in the future, the development of QuickBook would have certain capability. We don't need an external app on top of QuickBook Online to do certain function. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, that would be freaking amazing. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Because right now I still will walk in with receipts for properties or different businesses, and then I have little different deposit points where I put specific receipts for a specific business or for a property. And then the bookkeeper who manages that knows that if they reach into that area and pull out receipts, it's from me for this business or this property. So I'm still a little old school that way, but this sounds pretty good.
It's the same, essentially same as you. Your own,
Yeah, this is just streamlining it. No, I get it. I know I sound like I'm a million years old right
No,
now.
no,
and
no,
I
no,
don't
no,
use
no,
that
it's-
kind of stuff. I just like the way that we're doing now. Okay, and then when you're doing your bookkeeping with, sorry, I didn't mean to get into Erwin. I'm coming back to you in a second. But on the bookkeeping questions, now
I'm used to this.
Now I'm curious. Now I'm curious because we usually meet with our accountant about a month before fiscal year end, just to look over our income statements, look over the properties, kind of almost like a strategy session.
Yeah.
We usually have those actually about twice a year. Is that something you recommend for people? Or if you have like one property, there's no need, just file your taxes, collect your income and expenses, and you're good to go.
So depending on the type of businesses that you're in, right? Like properties, they're pretty straightforward. So we usually recommend our clients to talk to us during the year, and definitely before year end. Otherwise, we would not be able to do any planning because planning is done ahead of time, not afterwards. So we recommend them to talk to us every time they make a major decision. If they want to sell a property, they want to get a better understanding, we want them to talk to us, and we can let you know roughly how much it's going to cost you to sell this property. I mean, the cost in terms of CLA's cost. And then we can maybe recommend, hey, like maybe you shouldn't sell, maybe you should refinance. So we look at different options with our clients.
Okay, so you have that kind of strategy session as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so when you guys are working together with all this stuff, because you have your accounting practice that's growing, Erwin, you're doing a whole ton of real estate stuff, and we're going to talk about Grant Cardone in a second, what you're doing in November. But how are you guys managing stuff on the family front? Like, who's responsible when Erwin wants to go to the gym? Who has the kids at that moment?
Our nanny.
So you hire a nanny who lives in the house,
Yeah, we have a live-in nanny. Yeah.
A live-in nanny. And how long have you had a live-in nanny for?
5 years.
Since 2014
Okay.
October.
And that's a strategy
Yeah.
that you would recommend. Everyone who I know who has a live-in nanny is like, yeah, I'll just never go out without a live-in nanny. So that's something that you love.
That's just like one of the MVPs of our household.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so that's giving you guys a lot of different freedom because the live-in nanny does picking up kids from school, that kind of stuff, dropping off the kids to school,
Yep.
picking up from school.
Yep.
Meals.
Meals.
Who's taking out the garbage?
Nanny.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember I had a neighbor and his nanny used to take out the garbage, and he looked at me one day and he said, Tom, just for that alone, I actually hate taking out the garbage. I just hate it, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
So just that alone, he told me, he's like, Tom, just that alone is amazing. I was like, holy smokes. So that I'm sure you're very grateful and feel fortunate that you can totally afford to do that. Not everybody can do that.
I have an argument to that. Like, people always tell us, oh, I can't afford to have a nanny. But the truth is, like our kids are 5 and 4. One is turning 4. He's still 3 right now. To put someone into the daycare, it costs about $1,200 full time. Like, to put him in
Totally,
full-time
yeah,
daycare.
yeah.
It doesn't include meal prep, doesn't include anything. If you multiply that by 2, that's the cost of the nanny. Except the nanny also cooks and cleans
Yeah, got it.
and pick up the kids.
Okay, so you've justified it. That's totally worth it.
My favorite thing is like come 5:30 at the end of the day, end of our work day, we cut ourselves off, and then we can spend time with the kids. We can go play outside. We can ride some bikes. We can hop in the hot tub while our nanny's cooking dinner.
So you really cut yourselves off? So like at 5 or 5:30, you're not checking email, you're not checking your phone?
Not perfect.
Give me
I'm
give
far
me,
from
give
perfect.
it to me straight.
Yeah, I'm far from perfect.
Because I think Nick just walked in, by the way. Nick, can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's
yeah,
great.
this is amazing.
The
Okay.
miracles of technology.
Hey, Nick is here now. But
I'm laughing because Cherry shook her head like emphatically.
I know. You know why? I think maybe 5 years ago, it was much easier to cut yourself off. Phones have gotten so good that it's hard because if you're reading something about the Raptors or the Leafs on your phone and a text message comes in, it's really hard to ignore that if that's something to do with a real estate problem or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you guys do intentionally try to cut yourselves off at that time.
Yeah, I'll try to leave my phone somewhere else.
Smart.
Take it out of
Yeah.
my pocket.
Where do you leave it?
Well, just like on the bookshelf or something.
Yeah,
It's
just
hard though
away
also
from-
because I want my camera with me.
When the Raptors were in the finals, how were you reading all the articles and watching the pregame videos then if you didn't have your phone on you? That's what I want to know.
Oh, I had that.
Yeah, see.
The whole Raptors thing was just destroyed our schedules.
I think I checked the TSN app for new articles and videos like 14 times a day. It was kind of sad.
But don't you find you're reading more of that stuff on your phone than you ever have?
Yeah.
Like I totally am.
The Raptors
And
got
I
me
hate-
back on Twitter. I was like not using Twitter for ages. Now I'm back on Twitter just to read articles from the media folks that I like.
Yeah, got it. Okay, what other
Get
things
the
do you
latest
guys
on
do
Kawhi.
between because you both have busy lives, right? With everything going on. So at 5:30 you try to cut off. You try to put your phone away if possible on a bookshelf or something like that. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Whatever, but that's the intention. What other things do you guys or do you have any other things that you guys try to implement in your lives just to manage all this stuff?
I try not to do too much with my phone until until at least one kid's on the bus, and so that's around 8:30ish, and then I'll start working around 8:30.
Okay, so you try not to pick up your phone before like 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, do nothing serious with it. Don't start working. Don't read email. Absolutely don't read email.
What time are you getting up in the morning?
I usually get up when the kids get me up.
So what time do you go to bed?
I'm trying to be better with the Raptors being over and being much better. 9 or 10.
9 or 10?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I need more
wish
sleep
had-
than you do.
No. I want to go to bed at 9 or 10. This is a running joke in my family that
time
my
do you-
family knows I want to go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I never do, so I can spend time with them.
When do you get up?
When they get me up, so it's usually around 7.
Yeah, that's a good amount of sleep, man. That's
Sometimes
great.
earlier.
Dude, you
Yeah,
need less sleep.
No. That's a good amount
No,
of sleep.
I'm bad. I can't recover for crap.
Have you done your cortisol level stuff? Like, do you know how
Not
your
lately. I feel way better though before I started taking those tests. Yeah, I used to have like nap all the time before I did my cortisol test and my food sensitivities.
So what do you think it is now?
It'd be good. It'd be actually good to test. I only tested it once, but I don't need those afternoon naps anymore like I did when I.
No
before I
kidding.
tested.
You're
Yeah.
sleeping for 9 or 10 hours a night. Who the
Yeah,
hell
no,
needs an
that's
It's one of the
afternoon nap?
best things ever done.
Yeah.
Intermittent
I
fasting
agree
and
with
sleep.
I agree with that. I think it's a good amount of sleep.
Yeah.
I wish I had that much sleep.
You guys,
9 to
look,
7.
You're 40. You're 45, going on 60. You're whatever.
See, Nick's
30.
aging too. He doesn't even know my age.
Yeah.
I'm older than 45. But that's a good amount of sleep. He's saying 10 to 7. Listen, I doubt you're going to bed 9 all the time. I just kinda
No.
doubt
I
that.
might start winding down. I try.
yeah.
I try to stop working. Like last night I was podcasting until almost 9:30, for example. So then I was a bit wired after that. But my problem was that I was finding I was irritable, especially when the kids were going to bed. I was way too irritable, so I was trying to figure out how to control that, and more sleep helped that. That's the biggest thing.
What time do your kids go to bed?
We try to get them around 7 to 8.
Oh my gosh, you are so screwed in the future. I'm so looking forward to this because your kids are not going to go to bed at 7 or 7:30. You know, as they age, nanny or no nanny, they're going to go to bed at 10, 10:30. Now, sometimes Aiden's not coming home. We're not wrapping up. We're not in the house until after 10 from a soccer practice. So yeah, enjoy that sleep now, Erwin. It's coming back. And then Cherry, what kind of hours do you keep? Similar or slightly different? Tell me if I shouldn't be asking this stuff. I'm just kind of curious.
No. I usually go to bed at 9.
You do.
But then I get up earlier than Erwin, way earlier.
What time is that?
The kids do not bother Erwin. Kids come in and say, "Mommy, I want this. Mommy, I want that." But my kids are pretty good in the morning. We're so spoiled, to be honest. I don't even know if we should share this. They would get up at 6 and they play in their room. They share one room right now. And they would play in their room until 7:30, and then come get us after.
Yeah, wow. You're totally spoiled if that's already happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good for you guys.
We'll train them to get their own breakfast soon enough. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the sleep time. And why? What time are you going to bed right now?
I go to bed, I don't know. I'm usually in bed by 10:30, 10:15, 10:30. Sometimes
So
it's
you
like
think you're
11.
falling-
11's too late.
So you're falling asleep by 10:45 most
No,
nights?
like I'm asleep by like 10:30, let's say.
Oh,
and then up at what
Most
time?
of the time. 5:25.
Wow.
because he's hitting the gym for 6.
Yep. Sometimes I sleep until 5:45.
Yeah, my house isn't winding down. I'm not in bed until 11:30. Like
That's not sleeping
falling
good.
asleep at 11:30.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like I'm in
It's-
bed earlier, but I mean out by 11:30.
If I get 7 hours, I'm like, I'm like, that's good. Like, I mean, I probably need more. I'm not saying, but I just mean I feel okay. 9 hours is like, I mean, maybe once a year I do. Maybe when I'm sick, I just don't. Like even on Sundays, if I stay up late on Saturday, I won't even be able to sleep that long on a Sunday just because of the routine I'm in.
What about your yearly schedules between you two? Do you have like vacations that you absolutely want to take every year? Like, do you take a Christmas vacation around December, or do you take like a spring vacation? Do you do that kind of planning with your family, or is it a little bit haphazard and random?
Bit haphazard.
Totally random.
Totally
The
random.
only trip that I make plans of is my my visit to my family
Got
in
it.
Hong
That-
Kong once a year.
Once a year. When do you
Yeah.
take that one?
Usually in November, December.
And how many weeks of vacation do you guys ideally want to take a year?
I want 4 to 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 to 6?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like you guys care about vacation very much.
You
Let me
give,
ask-
Erwin gives ranges of everything.
Yeah,
He says there's no
How-
answer.
Erwin, what do you do?
Our lives we're quite blessed. Our lives are quite good. Right.
So how hard, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you think you're working a week right now? Cherry's working harder than you. I already know for sure.
Cherry works longer than I.
Yeah, no, I already know this answer. But for you, how on a scale of 1 to 10? Not that anything's right or wrong. I'm just curious. What would you think your capacity is? 10 is the most you could be possibly working. 1 is the least. Where are you?
So the thing is, with my training schedule, with golf, jiu-jitsu, CrossFit, I am at my limits. I'd have to give up a lot of that stuff, but I enjoy a lot of those things in order to be able to do more work.
You're right, Nick. Erwin doesn't answer
He
questions.
What kind of
So I'll
bullshit
ask-
answers that?
No,
That's why I can sleep
no,
so
but
much.
the thing is, I understand is because he's
I
basically
know.
saying he's
Yeah.
at a 10
Yeah.
for all the things you're. But now, remove the golf, the CrossFit, and what was the other thing? Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And then where are you at on a scale of 1 to 10? Probably a 6.
Yeah, I'd say I was thinking I had 7 in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I could do way more work, but
Yeah.
it's
Oh no, but that's
nice to
great.
enjoy
I mean,
life.
We're all about living life. For
Oh,
yourself.
yeah,
No,
we're not
that's
saying not to work. Yeah.
completely. No, that's completely great. I'm just.
We're not saying not to
curious.
work. We're saying you got to answer the question. That's what
Okay, got it. And Cherry, you're at a 9 out of 10, so I don't even have to ask you. I feel like you're.
No, I think I'm 11 out of 10.
Yeah, but you're growing a business.
Well, it's nice that your husband's there to help you come back down to a 10.
It's the other way around, right? Like when you're an accountant, you don't have a choice. Like it's on you, like his business, all the financial decision and everything is on you because you are the accountant. There's no other choice. Yeah.
But you guys are growing. You're also growing the business. You're growing the team. You're building momentum in your business.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Erwin's a little more established with what he has going on.
He's also a lot better at delegating than I am.
yeah. My team's older, so my team's much more mature.
So Erwin,
We have
how
our
do-
problems, but
Oh my gosh, everyone! Yeah, for sure. Everyone's got their problems. So, Erwin, how do you handle the delegation when someone on your team isn't doing something the way you would do it? How do you handle that?
it's funny because one thing I've done is everyone on my team is now coached by my coach as well. So then that way I have some oversight. And that way they're learning the same way I learned. And with the newer folks, I'm pairing them up. So they spend a lot more time shadowing the rest of my team, more senior team members. And I have a weekly call with my 2 newer agents to go over things. So twice a week they're being coached, one by me, one by my coach. So that's how we keep tabs on things. We could have been doing a better job, obviously, but this is a pretty good path. And also I have
Why? Because your coach rats them out to you?
Yeah.
How you keep? Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
But they're doing
answer.
well. They're doing kind of as expected. Yeah. But there's a learning curve. Everyone needs to communicate better. Everyone needs to work on their sales skills, just like everything. I think everyone can
Totally.
improve. I can always improve. I know that too.
Okay. Oh, it's a pretty good system. I don't know if Nick and I could ever do that. Maybe we're too much micromanagers.
I think one of the things is just like every entrepreneur, every business owner and manager, you kind of have to accept that folks will not do what you do. Right?
Yeah, I've accepted that. It's I haven't the coaches
We
that
haven't
we've used
found
have been temporary solutions because
Yeah, we haven't
for a
found a
variety
coach
of
that we can
reasons.
have a long-standing relationship with because all the coaches and the different masterminds and stuff we've had, they've served a very specific purpose in the stage of growth that we happened to be in at that time. They didn't really serve like an ongoing purpose for us, but I can see your coach is almost acting like a sales manager for you.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of dealing with the sales team. They're managing the sales team. You've kind of outsourced that role through this coach. We've never quite had a coach kind of like at that capacity because we've always just handled that between us. So
You guys have each other too, because
Totally.
you guys are mad driven.
yeah.
You
Remember
guys
that
don't
one-
need the push as much as like I do and my team does.
Remember that one guy that started talking about, I forget what he was saying on the phone, and I just got really frustrated. And I'm like, look, like basically,
No, which
remember he was
guy?
talking about, I don't want to say any names, but anyways.
Remind me of the situation.
We were on the phone. It was about the personality things. And he's like, and he started asking just some weird questions. I'm like, man, like I just got so frustrated. 'Cause I'm like, why are you asking me such these crazy
Yeah, once
questions?
Nick's
Like, let's just
decided
get down to like business here, man. Like, what are we doing here? You know?
Yeah, once Nick's decided somebody's full of shit, he's just going to call them out on their bullshit, you know? And in that case, you had decided this particular person was full of shit.
I think I did. That probably wasn't right then. Yeah, but yeah, you're probably right. I did.
Yeah. I think you're more patient than you used to be. You've ever been. Anyway, we'll leave that because I want to come back to Cherry now for a second. Cherry, when people talk to you about real estate from an accountant's perspective, what arguments can you make for and against real estate? Like from your point of view, like you guys are obviously in real estate, so you're going to have a heavy bias towards it. But is there anything that you guys say against real estate? Like, hey, you know what? Before you get into it, this is something from my perspective that I think you should consider because it might not be right for you. Do you ever have that discussion?
Oh yeah, all the time.
So what are some of the kinds of things that you bring to people's attention? Erwin, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
I think we have one client, our common client. She's no longer a client because she moved out of province. She bought the student rental and it went really well. And then, but she didn't want anything to do with it anymore. One is enough. And like I always use that as an example when I see prospective clients, because some people come in and they said, "Oh, I want to set up a corporation." Way away for the very first one, and I usually hold them back and say, "Hey, like you should."
Why do you hold them back?
It costs money to set up a corporation and maintain the corporation, right? But then if you are only buying one property, unless you're super concerned about your the risk liability, the risk involved in managing your property, I would tell them not to, just until you're more committed. The decision is always about how committed you are, rather than hey, like, does it make sense? Of course, like I always explain to my client, hey, like if you own properties in the corporation, it's not going to be giving you immediate benefit unless there are like flips. If it is just long-term rental, then that's a different story. Like it's going to take a couple of years or a few properties to get to the break-even point, and then you will see benefits later on.
And that's because for the first few years, there's just not enough cash flow running through the business with your properties to pay for just the overhead of accounting and that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, but why for flips is there a bit of an immediate benefit?
Oh, flips are considered business, so it's just like Rockstar's income. Then it will be taxed at small business tax rate.
So at 12.5%.
Exactly.
Up to $500,000 of net income.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas if you're doing rental properties and selling them, a CRA is going to consider that a capital gain.
Passive income.
The rent passive income.
Yeah.
And then if you sell the property, that's a capital gain.
Yeah, it's a capital gain. It's taxed at still taxed at 50% of it is taxable, and then it's taxed at 50%.
Okay, and then how often would that happen before CRA says, okay, this isn't a capital gain, it's actually a business, because you seem to be buying and selling rental properties over a period of some time or so many a year. Does CRA ever do that?
They do. It's one of the most audited area, but it's usually not related to rental property per se. It's usually with people who do not report any rental income and then sell it and report it as capital gain.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then going back to the person who left the province, and when we were talking about like getting out of real estate, or some of the things that it's not right for, can you continue down that line of thinking?
Yeah. So some other client would come to me with large size of portfolio, and they came to me and say, hey, like I'm planning to sell this property and I'm going to retire, and she may clear $200,000 from the sale, and that's not enough for her to buy another property. She's winding down her business and everything. So then I tell her, like, maybe you should consider second mortgage or investment in the other options available, because depending on the life, the life stage that you are on, you may not, like, real estate may not be the right thing for you to do.
Okay, and then from an accounting point of view, because that all makes sense, from an accounting point of view, what are some of the biggest benefits you find from real estate? Strictly from the accounting point of view.
Oh, you can refinance, and it's tax-free mostly. You don't have to pay tax until for on your rental income, you can usually claim capital cost allowance, and you can postpone it until the year that you sell. Those are really huge tax benefit, right? Yeah.
The refinance one where you can extract money out of your property.
Exactly.
Are there any exceptions to that where you have to be careful, or where you like refinance a property, give the money to yourself?
Yeah.
What do you have to consider in that type of situation?
If you take the money and not for investment, for personal use purpose, you're buying your next home, because a lot of investor would start with converting their existing primary residence into a rental property and then extract the money to buy their next home. Technically speaking, interest related to that equity that you pull out would not be tax deductible.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you pull out money from a property, it should be used for another investment.
Yeah, any type of investment. Doesn't have to be real estate, but it has to be investment.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Even if it is GIC earning like 0.5% interest.
Yeah,
it's
got
still
it.
investment.
Got it. Okay. And if it's used as such, then it's tax free.
It's used as such, then the interest related to the equity that you pull out would be deductible.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Cool. And now, Erwin, for you, from your perspective, do you ever tell people, you know what, real estate's not right for you? Because I find like between yourself, myself, and Nick, the answer's pretty much like, hey, buy assets, man. If you're not building a business, then the best asset you can buy is I always think of a nice income property as the best business in a box. Customers are there. They show up every day. They actually live there. They pay you every month. They don't pay you. They leave the property. Like, it's the best business in a box.
Yeah.
But do you ever find yourself talking people out of it? Or no?
If they have way too many concerns, then I'll ask them if they really want it. But then I go back to, like, what is the problem they're trying to solve? Like, for us, we bought each of our kids a house because we're petrified of having to work longer into our retirement years to afford, like, the $140,000 it's going to cost for tuition. Because based on inflation today, that's what the tuition is going to cost for them to go to school. So I'm not, like, just think, how long does it take anybody to save $140,000 of after-tax money? So I'm trying to solve a problem. And so I go to my client as well, like, what's your problem? What are you willing to do to solve this problem? Because real estate is, it is a business. It's a really good business. It's an employee-less business. For anyone who manages people, they know the difference between having to manage employees and having to be a customer. Because in our properties, we're primarily customers. We're a customer of our contractor, customer of our property manager, customer of my appliance guy, right? And so to get rid of someone is quite simple, right? If, like, my appliance guy, I just don't call him again. I go to a new guy, right? So you have so much control in that way versus when you run a business and you have employees, you know, you have to pay CVP, you know, you could be talking unions. It's all much more challenging. So that's the beauty of real estate. Like you said, investment in a box. And I always like to add to that, an employee-less business.
The biggest negative for me, because I still want your answer on like the concerns that people would bring up, just to give some idea. The biggest negative for me are the unexpected calls that you will get. Nick's always had a great way to kind of rationalize this, but that's the biggest negative in real estate I find, because there's no like announcement like, Erwin, heads up, one of your properties in mid-July is going to have a flood, so book off a day because you're going to be dealing with a lot of plumbers that day. Like, it's never that. It's always unexpected.
Right.
Everyone's calendar is always full. So the unexpectedness of the problems, which don't happen that often, and if you have the right contractors, you can usually get around those pretty easily, but it's that interruption in your life that can't be planned for that is, to me, one of the biggest negatives, especially if you're raising a young family and you're busy and doing other things. When you're single and young, it's not really that big of a deal. But to me, that would be one of the biggest things. But Nick has, you rationalized this once the best way ever for me. Do you remember when you did that calculation?
Yeah, well, the reason I did that calculation is because I was sitting in a basement on a Sunday evening with a shop vac sitting on the stairs and just had it like a little at the edge of some laminate flooring and just sucking out all this water from underneath this laminate flooring. So I had lots of time to think. But and I was like, why the hell am I sitting here doing this right now? Because the guy that would want to take care of us, it was, I forget like what weekend, but he just wasn't around. It was just one of these odd days he wasn't around. I'm like, man, I have to go down there. So, but yeah, I thought about the time I was spending, and I thought about the income that this property was making, and then the value, the equity buildup and all that stuff. And I just figured out how much time have I spent in this over the years of this property, actual time, and then how much money has it made. And I'm like, wow, these are like some of the most profitable hours that I can have, right? So it just kind of made sense. I had to justify myself being there for somehow. So that's how I did it.
I do the same thing. It's a good work lesson. Like, for example, when someone gets offered promotion, they should look at how much money they're going to make more and how many more hours they're expected to work. And then what's your new hourly rate? I look at everything like that way. Because we actually know people who've been offered a promotion at the same, and it works out to be the same hourly rate. You have to work this many dollars more, but you have to work this many hours more, so you're making the same money per hour. Is that worth it to you? So I just do the same thing like Nick mentioned, because we had those major windstorms we had like a month or 2 months ago. My handyman was on vacation in like Italy or something, so I had to go deal with it. So it's important that you have a partner that's supportive. Honey, I had to go deal with this. It was the cover over the front door, so it's aluminum, it's sharp, it's blowing away, so something had to be dealt with immediately. So I told Cherry, I gotta go deal with this, and so yeah, I went and dealt with it. My customers are paying me over $3,000 a month for me to spend maybe 2 hours to go deal with it. Like, that's what do you not do that for your customer who's paying you $36,000 a year, right? And I bought them gift certificates for the local trampoline park as well to say sorry for the trouble.
Oh, you're a nice guy, Erwin.
Yeah.
Hey, so then on that note, when you talk to investors, you said you'll talk some people out of it if they have too many concerns.
Yeah.
What are some of those concerns that you've heard?
Like people who are just petrified of tenants. For example, I have a friend who works for one of the huge makes really good money, petrified of tenants. He won't do it, and I believe he won't be an investor. So then I recommended him do something else. So like private equity.
And what was his fear? I'm curious. Petrified of tenants in what way?
He just wouldn't do it. I knew he wouldn't do it. You know, he was in my wedding party. Like I know him that well. But there's just some people I know that won't do it because we know there's lots of people that won't do this. Anyone can do it. It's just that what do they want it enough?
I found that because I've met similar people, of course, both Nick and I have, and I found that when anyone's facing a major fear in life, if they just write down the worst case scenario of what they're scared of, and then next to that worst case scenario, you see if you can kind of solve it, it really becomes not that big of a deal. So with investors, they usually will write down things like, well, I'm scared the house is going to burn down. And I'm like, well, like you can put next to that worry that you have insurance. And or some of them are like, I'm scared the tenants are going to destroy and damage the house. That's always a big one. I'm like, well, there's actually insurance policies that you can buy. They'll cost you a little bit more, but they exist to protect you against damage from tenants. Another one will be vacancies. You can actually get insurance to protect you against that as well. So once you write that list and you get your fears out of your head and put it on paper, I found in life, real estate or otherwise, you can kind of minimize those things, and then it becomes almost black and white. Like, yeah, I should probably kind of proceed with this, you know. But when you just have that big bad fear in your head and you can't articulate it or you don't put it on paper, I find it kind of just grows on you, or it does on me anyway. So
and there's just those people that you know they want it more than anybody else. Like Evelyn Lamarche DeFrancesco, her maiden name, like. You just knew she wanted it more than anybody else. 26 years old, bought 10 houses in 7 years. She just wanted it more than anybody else, right? And there's just those people as well. And I can tell when someone doesn't want it that badly.
Yeah. Why is that, do you think? Their job's too good? They're making too much income? They're too comfortable where they are already?
Yeah. Because, this is something I do to myself is I do these things to motivate myself. Like I said, I don't want to work into my retirement years to afford to send my kids to university. That is my problem. That is a horrible problem in my mind. And I don't want to be a bad parent that can't afford to send my kids to school. So I create that problem in my head. And it's probably a legitimate problem. So I go and deal with these things. We bought them each a house.
Well, the flip side is it's a lifestyle decision too. They're like, look, I'm happy. Like I want to come home. And I don't want to think about my phone potentially ringing, and I don't want to think about reading a real estate headline and worrying about their interest rates and where they're going and what's happening in certain areas. Like they just don't want to do it. So there's that too. It's not, you know what I mean? And they're like, I'm good. This is like I'm comfortable working till I'm whatever age, and then taking my retirement because I have a pension there, and I'm just gonna that pension's gonna make me happy with CPP, and that's it. And that's great. I mean, that's a great solution, and that's a great life for a lot of people too. And there's just, they don't. I just personally don't think like one's better for the other. I think for some people one is better than the other, but not for everyone, right?
What I don't know if people understand is, and because I don't think the people dig into this stuff as much as we do. Like for example, the same friend, he said, because I said like, how are your kids going to ever afford a house? He goes, well, we did it. My parents did it. Okay, so then I didn't really dig into it, but I dug into my head. Like, Your dad was an executive at a big telecom company. Your mom stayed at home. My friend and his wife both make a lot of money. How will your kids incrementally make more money just like you and your wife did? You went from single income, mom stayed home, to double income. Now, what are your kids expected to do?
It's a good argument. I use that a lot too, and I find what most people dismiss it as with like, well, incomes will go up. Like that's the answer that I usually get is like whenever I say, hey, property prices are going up at a rate that is not matching income. And now I think in the last 5 years, it's becoming obvious to people because the delta is so big. But 10, 15 years ago, I would have these conversations and the answer was always like, well, property prices are going up, but that's kind of like inflation and incomes will go up. And I'm like, you can't dismiss it like that because the rate that incomes are going up is so much less than the rates property is going to go up. And now we're seeing that. Like I remember having this conversation around 2005 and now we're like 14 years later and I can see like, yeah, to your point, it's going to be very difficult going forward. There's a Globe and Mail article, a Toronto Star article right now that says in today's world, if you're not in the top 10% of income earners in Toronto, you basically can't qualify for a property. I don't have the article in front of me, so I can't remember the math they were using, if it was like a single family home or what they were saying. But that's kind of the trend that we're headed. And if I extrapolate that forward another 14 years with the population growth that we're going to have in here. And listen, the Federal Reserve just basically is on the fence right now on whether they should hold interest rates in the U.S. They've been wanting to increase them. They've been wanting to get them to like 4%. So they've wanted to increase them, but now they're thinking, do they hold them again? Or there's some talk of like, is there even a need to possibly decrease them? So when you have monetary policy that's just feeding money into the economy, and a population growth situation in Toronto, I feel like this is never discussed. What is going to be the next 14 years? What will it look like here? Like this just fascinates me to no end, but I'll stop on that because I know I get crazy on that. So what for you guys, what's now, you are running your iWin thing. You have Grant Cardone coming. How do you get to the point where how do you get to the point where Grant Cardone's coming to Canada? Like, is that something you also don't tell Cherry about, where you just kind of go and say, hey, Cherry?
It was her idea.
Oh, it was your idea?
No, it's not my idea about Grant Cardone.
Cherry, you're rubbing Cherry's closing her eyes and rubbing her head as she starts to talk about this. So where
Cherry didn't like my original idea, so she pushed it, and then we kind of got here. It's not as simple as that.
So I think his coach recommended him to do some free training class, and at the
Got
time,
the idea from you guys.
yeah, at the time I got coached by a different guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, people pay money, pays attention, pay something like that." And I said, "No, don't do free class. It doesn't make any sense because people would not value it." So no offense, you guys, not the same thing, but essentially like you should do something different. And Tom and Nick are already doing the free class. He also had experience of doing free class and having like 2 people show up.
Yeah, we had that happen once, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't.
We've had that happen before once. I remember, I think it was December. We started the class with like 8 people in a room that could clearly handle more than that. And they're all scattered out and you start talking, you're like, oof, this isn't too great.
Yeah. So then I was like, oh, let's do something different. And in my head at the time, I was thinking, okay, maybe do like maybe a 50 people event, but pay event. And we have a bunch of friends that are in real estate. We can have them all teach something. And then I think my grandmother passed away at that time. So I flew back to Hong Kong. And the next thing I know is Erwin is connecting with all these friends. Mm-hmm. And there was a first meeting that happened that caused it happen. And then I think it kind of took off from there.
Yeah, we're thinking about hiring a speaker. And so then we were looking at that, doing like a 200
Because right now
event.
you host monthly meetings, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
right
it.
now we host monthly meetings, about 50 people. We have 50 members right now. So I'm used to doing events. We've done events of like 230 before as well. And then we're looking at hiring a speaker because that seems to be a good model that works for these types of events. And then, and this is actually a nice story for like the good guy. Not saying I'm a good guy, but an introduction was made for me. And then from there, another introduction was made for me. And then from there, another introduction was made to me that connected me with Grant Cardone's party. And he was available. So like, oh my god.
And so for those people, because some people don't know who Grant
No.
Cardone is, can you just explain this guy and what he's about and why this is like a big deal?
So it was Cherry's idea to go to 10X GrowthCon.
Yeah, because it's obvious business reason, and we just need to tag along to have our vacation then, so we can write off our expenses. That's why we were in Miami attending 10X GrowthCon.
Okay, so let me paint the picture here, and I'll let you continue in a second. So Grant Cardone, a big real estate personality in the U.S., runs a lot of advertisements around real estate and creating wealth. He ran a conference in Miami that was going to be one of the biggest business conferences around in present day, called the 10X GrowthCon.
32,000.
And they did get 32,000 people in a baseball. Was it a baseball stadium or
Marlins baseball stadium.
Marlins baseball
So that's
stadium.
Florida's baseball
So you
team.
guys tacked on a vacation. Nick and I have done similar kind of stuff where you go to a conference in a nice location. You're like, oh, this is a good reason to
Just
go to
hang
a
out for a little bit.
yeah. So you go down to this thing, you
Yeah.
get exposed to this guy and what he's about. You come back here and you're deciding about the speaker. And this is where, Erwin, to your point, you get put in touch with Grant Cardone's people.
I forget at which point. No, I think we were already in works to get him here. We're just negotiation, I think. No, because we have emails with our team from December working on this.
I don't know if we necessarily have decided at that time.
Yeah,
but
because we were
this
in
is-
negotiations.
yeah.
Negotiations took forever.
Well, there's also a price point that we have to get used to, right? Like it's a business decision. It's
Because
an
now you're
investment.
spending more money than you ever have to
Exactly.
put an event together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you have planned? Tell everyone what's going on.
So we were stretching ourselves to think we would hire like a dragon, like someone from the Dragon's Den, possibly someone from Shark Tank, and then that's how. And then the availability of Grant was there, and then we did that. So then what we're planning for November 9th is, well, from this journey that I've been on, my wife's been on, partly been on largely with you two. I've been here since 2010, for example. I've
Is
been
that
at
how
Rox-
long it's been?
Yeah, it's been. Yeah.
Really?
I know, man, crazy. Eh?
Holy cow.
I
How long have you
still
been
tell
doing
people the
this?
story how I got here, and people are like, "Oh, that's so smart."
What-
Is there time for me to share the story?
You bought me a
Sure.
book, didn't you? I thought, the only
Was
reason
it that complicated to start working
No,
together with us?
So
Oh,
you know
very
what?
complicated.
The only reason that I actually met with Erwin is because I thought you remember. At that time, we were so busy. And I don't know how I booked it, someone else booked it. I don't know, and I just almost never even took meetings outside of. Still even less now. So I did take some meetings, I guess, with that. But I thought you remember when we were meeting. I remember our first meeting. But so how did you get here? Yeah, I'm curious.
So back in the day, before social media was really popular, we were doing email lists, right? Like, anyone wants to meet up for talking about Hamilton investing, get on this email list, right? And it wasn't like formal, wasn't Infusionsoft, nothing like that. It was just everyone just keep replying to this
BCC
yeah,
or whatever. Yeah.
Just keep replying to this email, and you'll be on the list, right? So I was on one of those. I was frustrated with the broker I was working with because he, traditional real estate, residential, wasn't jiving with me for investment side. So I asked the question to the email list, hey, does anyone know anyone who specializes in investments in Hamilton? And then it was actually Maria Marcuzzi replied back and said, Leslie Kitchen, she's amazing. Leslie at rockstarbrokers.com. Can I share her email address?
Sure.
So what's this? So I just copy paste rockstarbrokers.com, put it into Google, and then I find the free training class, and then I got here. And then at the free training class, I was like, wow, this is great. And then Tom, you give the presentation, so everyone swarmed you afterwards. But I like to research people, so I know Nick is highly involved in this business as well. So
I feel
go
like
straight to
Erwin,
Nick.
you and Nick are different personality types. I can just imagine that first meeting.
But I went straight to Nick because there's no lineup for Nick.
I actually don't even remember this. I just
Yeah.
remember meeting with you at the office we were at that time. But this I don't even remember.
So what,
So
you
was I
approached-
nice to you, or was it like, why is this guy talking to me?
No, we were cool. Everything was cool. I forget where I was in my point or my journey for
'Cause you
getting
were
my
still in
license
the
as well.
corporate world
Yeah,
as
still in
well.
the corporate world. I was already an existing investor. I believe I'm the first person to join Rockstar without being a member.
You might be.
I think
Yeah.
you were.
Yeah.
Now I think I remember because you said your broker when you were leaving went and looked up like our team members.
Remember
right?
that? Yeah.
Yeah. So what's common? I didn't realize. So now I know that's very common, right? So when someone's leaving a brokerage, what they'll do is the broker will. So we don't do any of this, so that's why I don't know. But the broker will go and look up the person or the brokerage and be like, well, look, they're not doing any business. Like, it doesn't make sense for you guys for you to go there. And but it's
brokerages would say that about us because our business was so scattered across Ontario. You couldn't see if we were doing business.
It wouldn't actually say the brokerage. It would say their like the reps' names, and like the top rep who I knew the volume that person was doing. You know, and you said what the broker showed you, and I was like, yeah, but that doesn't work because he's looking in one board, not between the Hamilton board, the Toronto board. And at that time it was even more segmented. Now there's a regional board, so it'll give you a little bit better idea. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'd never thought about that. But yeah, so
I wasn't licensed at that point though, but the plan, he wanted me though. I was his client.
Yeah,
I think he saw potential, and then he was livid that I didn't join.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that now. Yeah.
I remember you just calling me saying, hey, do you want to have lunch at this Greek restaurant with this guy, Erwin? And I'm like, I don't know. Are you paying for lunch? Let's go. And we sat down, and then I think that's when you explain, hey, what you wanted to. So this must have been after you met with Nick.
Yeah. This is after I met with Nick. And it's been a long time. But I remember you coming to the interview with Nick because I said, hey, I want to join this place. You came to my interview with Nick, and you shook my hand because you said, this is the best job application I've ever seen.
Wow. Good for you. Yeah.
I don't remember I don't remember any of that.
JP Galbus was pretty good, his thing, because he wrote us a lot. At the same free training class, he came, and during the class, he ended up writing us this big, long letter on the back of the enrollment form of why he wanted to work with us. And he
and we literally just found the letter at the end of the class. It was like tossed in with a bunch of other papers. We're like, hey, Nick, look, somebody left us a handwritten note.
So yeah, there's been a few.
Yeah.
So okay, it's cool. It's worked out. It's worked out. It's been great.
Yeah. So you joined at that moment that many years ago, and it's led you to this point now. So carry us through. So what are you doing?
So November 9th, a bunch of our friends getting together, trying to. It's hard to explain what we do, but I've met a lot of people on this journey, people who can consistently, repetitively make good income, build wealth. Many of them have real estate, but they also do other things. Some do other things for active income. One of my friends is a stock investor who sells options to make more active income. I have friends who, survived for 4 years they had to because the passing of a partner, became a single dad overnight with 3 kids. So he couldn't work for 4 years. So how he survived was through real estate, like refinances, sold a property, and did private lending. So these are strategies that we'll be discussing on November 9th, Toronto Congress Center. And of course we have our keynote, Grant Cardone. We invited Tom to speak as well, because starting a small business is a good way to generate active income.
I'm glad you invited me, and I didn't hear Nick's name. So this is perfect. We're cutting Nick out of the equation.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can get both of you guys. So.
I think that's great. I think Tom should go and not me. So Nick
knows
great.
how much work it is to put a presentation together. So this is great.
I paid Erwin. There's another way they're going to share how to make money. Offer people not to present and pay them so they get the brother to go instead.
One. Yeah.
But yeah, you both have tickets to come. So if anyone wants to hang out with Tom and Nick too, they'll be there. The website.
And then when you're working with Grant, we'll share the website in a second. When you're working with someone like a Grant Cardone, do you ask him to speak about a certain subject, or does he come in with like a prepared talk?
We are contractually able to choose what we negotiated this, but we are choosing what to say, and the plan is we'll choose a topic. I'll probably go back to some old footage to see what we liked. I'll poll some folks as well, because there are quite a few fans in Canada. There's a bunch of us that went down to Miami.
I know there are, because people have approached me about Grant Cardone specifically and said they were really excited to hear the news that you were doing this and that kind of stuff. So it's super cool.
Yeah, and he's a wealth hacker too himself. Started from nothing. His dad died when he was a teenager. Now he's grown his real estate business to over a billion under assets under management. He actually focuses on low cap rates, which I was really fascinated by, and he's one of the top sales trainers in the world because he focuses largely on doing corporate sales, selling to corporations, large teams that have salespeople. So I jive with him because I think sales skills is something that's completely neglected in education and what I see out there. And honestly, what I see when people know we're doing this event, so people are pitching us to come speak at our event, and wow, that's the best pitch you got.
How did you get yourself some sales skills? Is that the coach that you hired to help you with that? Because you don't come from a sales background.
No, I don't. I come from a business background. I'm a high C by trade, so I'm an analytical person. Yeah. I'm an analytical person, but I'm also someone that believes that whatever skill you want, you can go learn. So I've studied Brian Tracy extensively. That's probably my biggest source of training. I've gone through his sales training program at least 4 times.
So for those, if anyone's listening, you don't know about DISC, it's one of the personality profile types, and DISC is driven, I is interpersonal, S is steadiness, C is compliant. Is that how it goes?
Something like that.
And so you're high C, you're D.
I'm DC. Yeah.
Oh, you're DC.
Yeah.
That's really rare.
Yeah, that is.
We don't see that often.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then so the website, like to check this out, what's the website to go to?
Wealthhacker.ca. Again, that's wealthhacker.ca. And we have a discount code. Can we go ahead and share it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we have a discount code for 10% off. It's YLYT, which is the acronym for this show. Your Life, Your Turns. YLYT is the discount code. Wealthhacker.ca.
Cool. That's very kind. Thank you.
Well, happy to. You know, we're so grateful to be here. It's funny because so many people have asked me, like, "Are you still at Rockstar? They haven't kicked you out yet." Like, do you know something I don't?
Surprise.
Yeah, cool.
And on the other end of it is for people who don't know who Rockstar is. The assumption is that they always ask, "Do you own it? Is that your brokerage?" Like,
There's a few people here that actually own Rockstar. A few other people on the team that.
Yeah, we've had that over the years where multiple
It's
people.
cool. We
have-
can all own it. It's fun.
Yeah.
Let's all do it.
But,
It's good.
and then just leading up, like this is obviously a big deal, something the biggest you've ever done, putting on an event like this. What's going through your head right now? Like, what are you guys freaking out about? I think that's interesting for people to know. Like, what is it that's in the back of your mind right now saying, holy shit? Because there's got to be something.
Oh yeah.
Is
all
it
the time.
is it getting just people to show up?
I guess money is one thing, right? Cash flow. So I did share in the Rockstar Entrepreneur Bootcamp that, hey, like if you go into a new business, to me it's a brand new business, you really need to do the projection. And for us to look at our money situation every single month coming in and going out, it's a big deal. I think the second part is that Erwin being excellent at delegating work means also that someone has to pick up the slack, and he has a great team. We have Megan, we have Maria, and we have Darren as our social marketer guy. We have an event planner, but sometimes you still need the internal. That's the reason why you guys are partnered together, right? You guys own this brokerage together, so I feel like I'm the one that has to piece them all together, and so putting it in a system and trying to track it, and that is the really overwhelming part for me.
what people read out there, like people read like 4-hour work week and they think, oh,
Yeah.
it's, just 4 hours. Hey, you get it. You have systems. You have it all documented. You've trained your assistant. It's easy now.
Yeah, it's 4 years to get to 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you ever actually do get to 4 hours. Like things always get dropped, and you still have to always cover for things, and everything needs more hand holding than you expect. So that's it's an overall thing. Like Cherry said, cash flow. Thank God for our portfolio, because without our portfolio, we wouldn't have the seed capital to do this, because we're able to do this all entirely ourselves. We are the only investor on this. We've had people reach out just like softly, like, hey, do you want an investor? But I think you guys know, do you really want to give up control?
Yeah, control is a big part for us about living life on our own terms, is having control about everything we do. And to your point about the 4-hour work week and stuff, I think we have races in life. You know, you have sprints. Like, this is a sprint for you. Putting on this thing in November is a sprint where you're going to kind of run hard towards this date. But after that, you might have a few weeks of 4 hours. Who knows, where you're chilling out and that kind of stuff. So I think Jerry doesn't believe it, but there might be moments where you kind of go through a big race to accomplish something, and then you can totally chill out. And I think really in life we need that in the weeks and the months and throughout the years, right? You just happen to be entering a bit of a sprint, a big one for you guys. And I just want to thank you for sharing your story. It's pretty unique with you guys both. You're very open in sharing your journey, like Cherry, everything you're sharing just about your own business and about this event. Erwin, you're very much like that as well. It's not common for people to just kind of bluntly and humbly kind of just state where they're at in life and what they're doing and for some of the reasons that they're doing them. So really just thank you for sharing that information the way you have here. I mean, it's a big deal. I think it's important. I would have liked to listen to something like this from people like yourselves when I was about to quit my job and kind of get started, just to kind of get into your minds a little bit. So really just want to thank you for sharing the way you have.
Well, I personally, I could speak out for myself, but we've learned everything from you guys too, right? Like from the marketing side. So then I can avoid learning the hard sales pitch type of skills that I don't really have, so I can put my marketing system bulletproof so that I can just walk in and do the sales without doing much sales pitch. So that's the part that I'm really grateful for.
Like you should, Tom, you guys should see my DMs and texts. It's all straight for the sale.
Got it. Yeah. For people who want to come and speak at your event. Yeah, got it.
Which is hilarious. Like, I don't even know you.
Cool. So give us the date one more time and the URL one more time.
November 9th, Toronto Congress Center. November 9th this year, 2019. URL is wealthhacker.ca. Discount code YLYT.
Capitals, no capitals, does it matter?
Hopefully it doesn't matter. We're trying to keep things simple.
Okay.
Try it both ways.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. It's Tom Kradz again. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And you can get more information on Erwin's event in November at wealthhacker.ca. He offered that discount code YLYT. So if you want to buy tickets for his event, you can get them there using that code. That was very gracious of Erwin. Thank you, Erwin. Wealthhacker.ca is the URL to get more information about the event. And if you are looking for real estate specific information, some of the best stuff are the reports that I was mentioning at the beginning. You can go to rockstarinnercircle.com/reports. There's 4 different reports that we have live on there. And the latest one is Ontario's population explosion, the untold story. So if you want some of the population data and some of the Go Train expansion data that we've collected all in one report, you can get that at rockstarinnercircle.com/reports. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the feedback. And hey, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't had the chance to give us a rating on iTunes yet, we would greatly appreciate it. If you think we've deserved and earned that and you haven't done that yet, we thank you in advance for even considering to take the time to do that. Really means a lot to us. The feedback about the podcast really means a lot to us. Thanks for all of it coming in. We really, really appreciate that. And if you have any ideas for the show, you can always email them to podcast@rockstarinnercircle.com. That's podcast@rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.